Hey everyone, welcome to our introduction to character animation tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to introduce you briefly to a number of the different animation tools in CrazyTalk Animator 2, as well as give you a little bit of a walkthrough of our recommended workflow here. So let's take a look at this diagram first. You can see on the top we have a 3D motion. This is generally what we're going to apply with a G2 character to start off. I'm going to do that in this tutorial here. And from then on you can do your 3D motion key editing, multi-angle keys and motion layer keys and all that stuff. And then you can do your looping and time warp once you have the motion you like. And from then on, it's recommended that you kind of flatten your 3D motion or you collect a clip to a 2D motion, whatever you prefer. And then from that point, your final little step is to do some 2D editing of your motion. Alright, so let's get into CrazyTalk Animator here, and I want to go to my Actor tab, and I'm going to introduce, bring in one of my characters, Saul here. We're going to animate Saul. There he is. So let's bring it into our scene here. And with Saul, we're going to start off with a 3D motion, just like in the recommended workflow there. So let's zoom in on Saul. Let's go to the Animation tab here, and in Motion, and 3D Motions, I'm going to choose Working Motion. So we're going to go down here. And then we're going to use some thinking motions here. So we have think start. I'm going to just double click that and apply it to our character here. So Saul is beginning to think. And then we're going to be using a think loop right here. So we're going to be applying 3 clips in a row. And then we're going to be applying this think end with the Eureka. Alright, so there we have our 3 motion clips. So let's press F3 and go into the timeline here. In the timeline, I'm going to open my 3D motion track, and you can see here that I have my 3 clips. Let's just zoom out our timeline a little bit here. So you can see I have 1, 2, and 3. So those are my 3 motion clips that are combined together. Now, because I don't really want to individually edit any of these clips, I think they are fine the way they are. I want this to be a continuous motion. So right away what I can do is I can just double click on my motion track here, and that will select all of the clips in my motion track. Then I can right click and I want to select flatten motion clips. This is where the flatten motion clip in the workflow diagram comes in. So now we have this one neat motion clip that is just smoothly blended together, and that's basically where we're going to start from here. Now you can also notice that this clip is actually blue in color, and the 3D angle and the 3D motion layer tracks are white below it. That indicates it's a 3D motion. If it's a 2D motion, the clip itself will be gray in the same motion track, and the 3D angle and 3D motion layer tracks below that will also be grayed out. Now the first thing I want to do is go into my motion key editing. So let's zoom out so you can see Paul here, or Saul a little better, and let's go to our 3D motion key editor here. You can also use the M hotkey, and we'll just click that, and you'll see this, we'll close down our timeline for now, and you can see this motion key editor UI will appear on the right hand side here. Now, with any G2 characters, you can actually rotate them to any angle that you'd like. We have 10 different angle profiles. If we chose the same motion from 135 degrees, for example, you can see that he's kind of thinking there, and then, haha, I've got it. So you can basically play the same motion from any angle, and that's the advantage of these 3D motions. So what I want to do is we'll start from the the 0 degree, the normal angle here, and then what I want to do is when he's doing his Eureka moment, I want him to be kind of facing the camera. So let's go and press F3 and go into our timeline one more time. Let's bring that over here. And with any motion key edit, you'll probably want to start with a keyframe in your track, in your 3D motion layer track. So I'm going to start about here, and I'm going to just go into my 3D motion layer track, and I can just double click in that track to create a keyframe. And there you go, you can see the key right there. And at this point, when he's at the extent of his Eureka there, I can just select his head bone in the motion key editor here and use the E hotkey, and that will give me a rotate gizmo. And then I can just move that to the left, right here. So then at this point, when he's doing the Eureka, he's going to be looking at the camera. And you can see at this point, however, his head turns a little bit too far because we did that rotating of the head earlier on. So what I can do at this point here is near the end of my clip, I can just go here and I can actually use this reset, and that will reset his pose to what the pose was in the original motion clip. So anything that was in the original motion clip, any editing we've done will now be reset to the normal clip. and now we should have the head pointing towards the camera the entire time. Okay, so that's your basic motion key editing. You can do that with any 3D motion. So let's go into our 2D motion layer editing now. I'm going to go here, and you can see this is our 2D motion layer editing. But first of all, we're going to edit our sprites first. So sprite changing is right here, and I'm going to select that. And you should see our sprite exchange, sprite editor appear on the right-hand side here. And you can see you can change a number of different sprites with your character. So let's close down our 3D motion track now, so we won't be needing that anymore, and go into 2D motion layer editing. So you can see in 2D motion layer editing, we have our body transform, body sprite, and body deform, and also our layer as well. Now we're going to talk about the sprites first. Now what I want to do is with his Eureka, we're going to have him thinking, and then at this point here, I want him to kind of be pointing his finger. So we're just going to do a quick sprite change with his finger. And we're going to select that hand right there, and we're going to give him a pointing like that. And so up to there, it's normal sprite change, then pointing finger, and then anyways, coming down to about here, we'll just return that back to a relaxed sprite. And now you can see that we have that simple sprite switching animation. So that's how simple it is to adjust the sprites in your character and do some nice little animation like that. Now let's take a look at body transform. So we're going to go back to about here, and I want now to go into our 2D motion key editor here. And you can see in motion key editor we have our pose, we have body, face, and deform. Pose is just general movement of the limbs. Body will transform and modify the limbs. The face is for the face. Deform will kind of we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's start off with the body first, however. For this body, I want to stretch his arm out when he's doing his Eureka point here. So in the body transform, we're going to do the same thing we did with the motion key editor, 3D motion key editor. I want to, in this case, I want to double click in the body transform track to create a keyframe right there. And then at this point, I want to choose my forearm. Normally, we're going to start from the root of the motion, the root of the character rather. So if you're starting from the forearm, or starting from the upper arm, you want to go from the upper arm to the forearm to the hand. In this case, we're only going to be stretching out the forearm a little bit, just like that, just to kind of emphasize that pointing. And then we're going to be taking his hand and kind of stretching that out as well, something like that. So you can see now we have the stretchy hand like that, and you can see right here it's kind of deforming a little bit weird when it comes back down. So what I want to do is actually just copy this keyframe right here in the body transform track, and let's go over to when his hands coming down, and I'll just paste that. So that'll keep that that stretching animation for as long as this period between these two keyframes here. And then of course we can go back to the about here, and we can use the same reset function, and that will reset it back to the original flattened 3D motion clip. So let's take a look at that now. Stretch and then back to normal. So that looks a little bit better than before. So let's go on to the body deform now. So in the deform, let's zoom out a little bit here. In the deform, you can actually just kind of stretch and modify the perspective of your character body parts. So I'm going to go to deform here, and you can see we have a body deform track as well. Now, to start my deform, I'm going to also double click in the body deform track, add a keyframe there at the same frame, and then at this point, we're going to actually just do a little bit of deforming on his hand and his arm there. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We'll start from the forearm. We'll just kind of stretch that out a little bit, something like that, and we're going to focus more on the on stretching out the hand here. So when you're doing the body deform, you want to ensure that you keep your body parts close to the original root. Otherwise, you may have some issues with the body parts detaching from each other. So let's try and just stretch this out a little bit like that, and you can see we kind of deform that to a nice, nice large pointing finger. So you want to keep it around the general area. You don't want to kind of move it way over there or something like that. Otherwise, you'll have those issues that I mentioned before. So now we have these stretching out like that, and then so you can see now it's kind of like doing that. So we don't want it to do that. Of course, we want to do the same thing. So let's go to the body deform, copy that keyframe to the point that we want to, maybe to about here, and then we want to paste it back down. And then at this point, we're going to do the same reset. So this should have a nice return back to normal. There you go. So now we have the body transform, the body stretching, and everything like that. So let's take a look at the, whoops, let's get his, make sure we get his arm in the scene there so we can take a look at that. There we go. There we go. So we got that nice stretching out like that. So it's really emphasizing that point. Now for the last body part I'm going to, or the body editing tool I'm going to use here is the layer editor. So let's go back to the beginning for this. And I'm going to select my layer editor here. You can also use the L hotkey. So for this one, I'm going to, when he's doing his thinking here, I'm going to put his arm, his hand behind his head, almost like he's scratching his head instead of kind of being frustrated and putting his hand in front of his head there. So let's take his left hand here. And what I can do is I can select his left hand and choose this send to back, this icon right here. And that will send it to the back of the next body part that I click. So I'm going to select send to back, and then I'm going to select his head. And you can see that in the layer track here, we get this keyframe with the line behind it to indicate how long this layer change is going to take effect. So now you can see he's kind of scratching his head, scratching his head, scratching his head, and then, aha. So maybe at this point, we can just move the hand back to the front of the head. We don't really need to do that, but if we wanted to do that, we could just, select the hand in our layer key editor here. And what you can do is just now send it to the front and send it to the front of the head. And then you can see that keyframe cuts off there in the layer track. So that's basically the general tools, the body animation tools that we have in Crazy Talk Animator 2, general introduction to those. Let's take a look at the final animation here now. So kind of scratch his head. Haha. All right. And you also might notice that with our deforming here, at about this point here, you can see that the forearm kind of goes behind the hand there. So we can fix that again with layer editing as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Select that. This time we'll select the forearm. And with the forearm, we can send to the front and send the forearm to the front of the hand. And then that should be fixed right there. There you go. So we don't have that problem anymore. So that's a really quick fix if you ever have any sort of issues like that. And you can just fix it really quickly. So the last thing I'll do here is just do some quick facial animation. So let's close down the layer editor now. We have my character selected. And what I want to do now is go into my motion, or puppet editor rather. So the puppet editor on the left hand side here. And we can toggle between facial and body puppet here. We'll switch to facial puppet here with this top button. And you have a number of different profiles you can select. Any profile works with any character. These profiles are from previous versions of Crazy Talk. We have Chuck and Gwyn here from iClone as well as this Sprite profile. If I selected this one with a happy, expression, I can preview that and you can see the result right there. But maybe because he's worried at the beginning of his animation, I want to kind of do this. And you can see that we can have more of a worried thinking animation. Or we can even use one of these profiles as well. This woman right here. You can see, maybe she's thinking, or even something like this. You can choose an angry profile. But we'll just stick with this one for now. Maybe this angry one right here. Now be aware that when I press preview, and whenever I press space, that's where my cursor is. That's going to be the axis of my facial puppet right there. So if I press space right now, you'll see the axis appears right there, and I can move around the axis, and that will be how my animations are created. However, if I press preview and I go like over here and press space, then that axis will be over there. So be aware of where you're starting your previews on your scene, because you can get different results there. So let's go ahead and add some worried expression at the beginning of his animation here. So let's go ahead and press record, and then and at this point we can actually just do some sprite changing to give him some a nice facial animation, or we can do the facial puppet as well. I'll just use some sprite switching for this one here. We'll close down the puppet editor and go to our sprite switching. And we can select our facial parts here. So let's zoom in really closely on his face. And let's maybe at this point here, we want him to kind of stretch his eyes like that. Oh, maybe not that one. Let's use a happy one like that. And we'll get his mouth as well. His mouth will be most of the expression. And we want to give him a nice smile. Let's choose this one right here. That looks like a nice smile expression. And then maybe back to normal about here. Maybe just give him a little grin since he just had a good idea. And we can change his eye to a nice smiley eye as well. Not much different from the other eye, but that'll do. So then we can you can see the final animation right here. He's kind of thinking. There we go. And at that point, if we want, we can also add some auto lip syncing as well. So I'm going to do that as the final touch to this animation here. So let's close down our sprite editor right now, and I'm going to go create a script over here. So I'm going to select Create Script. For this one, I'm just going to go ahead and record my own voice, since that's the easiest way to do it here. You can also use text-to-speech, add in a WAV file or a Crazy Talk script. Let's go ahead and record my own voice. So I'll just go, I've got it. Okay, so that'll be probably pretty good. We can just go ahead and, I've got it. Alright, so there you go. We have the final animation right there. And if we want, I can press F3 and go into my timeline. And if the timing on your animation is not correct, or on your lip syncing is not correct, rather, you can go close down the 2D motion track, and we can go into our face track here. And you can see that the voice clip is right here with the audio data. And below that, those are the keyframes that are used for our auto lip syncing. So let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at those. You can see we have all these keyframes, this K one right here, this IH one right here. I can just double click those if I wanted to switch them, and I can move them to any of these. So you can see at this point I'm going, so maybe I want to have this BMP, and then we have, I've got it! Alright, so there you go, that's the animation right there, and if the audio facial clip is off as well, you can modify that as well, move this back and forth. So if I move this over here, for example, I've got it! Alright, so just is it a little bit later with the animations there. Now, it's important to note that the order in which you use the facial animation tools will determine which tool's facial animation data will take priority. For example, if lip sync is done after the facial puppet, the lip sync data for the mouth will overwrite previous facial puppet mouth sprite changes. However, facial puppet will not overwrite the lip sync. So generally the recommended workflow that I use for facial animation is do the facial puppet first, get your expressions in there, and then add the lip sync after that, and the lip sync will overwrite that facial puppet in as far as the mouth goes. And then you can clean that up with the sprite changes at the end. So that's about it for your introduction to character motion tutorial for Crazy Talk Animator 2. We will have more detailed tutorials on each individual tool and feature in later weeks here. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned something about how to animate your characters in Crazy Talk Animator. I've got it!